Very good afternoon on this Saturday, the 12th of February 2022. It's penning you well, the black pen. With the State of the Nation address that has come and gone this past week, a lot of people have obviously asked me for my opinions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read an article from the City Press from the 10th of February, which has 20 key announcements and messages from SONA 2022. I'm gonna freestyle. I apologize for that, but you know, I think it's the best that I can do for now. I'm gonna read the article and then I'm gonna state some of my opinions while I'm reading. I also want to mention a few other things that I picked up on the internet. I'm gonna try and keep it as short as possible. Unlike Ubabwenu, Ubab knows, Ubab Makala, Cyril Ramaphosa, your president, Cyril Ramaphosa. I'm gonna try and keep it short because, hey, no, Kulume forever and ever, Ramjit. I wasn't even listening to Sona, I was somewhere else, and I've come to hate these things because a lot of them actually really take our people for granted, and it's very upsetting. But yeah. City Press, 10 February, 20 key announcements and messages from SONA 2022. One of the main things that Cyril highlighted was that of the COVID-19 vaccinations, over 30 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered. Consequently, 42% of all adults and 60% of everyone over 50 is fully vaccinated. I do not have the data. I'm just going with my gut. If you visit squatter camps, if you speak to just people generally in the streets, I call bullshit on this data that 60% of everyone over 50 is fully vaccinated. Fully vaccinated means you've got the first, second jab and a booster. I call bullshit. And nearly 40% of all adults have been vaxxed. I call bullshit on that as well. But look, they'll say whatever they want to say, you know. What can we do? I just want to highlight in terms of vaccinations, I heard Cyril celebrating the fact that two South African or African plants will be manufacturing vaccines. Not sure about the second one, BioVac, which is a government SOE. I don't know much about it, but I will speak about Aspen. Aspen is a company that was founded by Stephen Saad and I think Gus Attridge. Stephen Saad is a Jewish businessman from Durban, and they were the first, and they had a monopoly on ARVs when they came out. They were boosted very much by, we don't want to call it, but it's a government tender. They had a monopoly on a government tender for ARVs. And it seems that now they essentially are getting the tender on COVID vaccines. They are not necessarily manufacturing vaccines. They have the right, the authority to manufacture the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So it won't necessarily be, or it won't be an Aspen vaccine, it will be a Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Stephen Saad is one of the people that is said to have funded Cyril Ramaphosa for his CR17 campaign. So when we speak state capture, think of Stephen Saad and the fact that he funded your president, and today they basically have a monopoly or a joint monopoly with BioVac for the vaccines that we're getting from America from Johnson & Johnson. Unemployment. Last year, our unemployment rate reached its highest recorded level. Unemployment has been caused by low growth, which has in turn resulted from a long-term decline in investment. I think I'm going to read these two in conjunction. Cyril then said something which a lot of people found very interesting. Said that government does not create jobs. We have been taking extraordinary measures to enable businesses to grow and create jobs, alongside expanded public employment and social protection. We all know that government does not create jobs. I want to go here to, where's this data? The South African government, according to the Mail and Guardian of September 2021, states that the South African government is the single largest employer in the country, with over 1.3 million employees across multiple sectors, including teachers, nurses, doctors, municipal workers, police officers, and defense force members. So your president, Ubab knows, was bullshitting and lying again. government does create jobs. Over 1.3 million jobs in this country fall directly from government. That's number one. Number two, our country has over 700 state-owned enterprises. Your Escoms, your SAPCs, before it was sold, your SAAs, Danel, Transnet, all of these companies fall under our government and they create jobs which haven't been captured in the 1.3 million. A lot of them are wholly owned subsidiaries by our government. So for Cyril again, to say that government doesn't create jobs is a pile of bullshit. But again, because he's a so-called businessman or he speaks for Business South Africa, he will obviously highlight that it's the private sector that creates jobs. Very, very upsetting for me hearing him say such bullshit. Saw a post today where it was pointing out at different times in the past where Cyril had spoken about, we will create 800,000 jobs. We will create 2 million jobs. We will create... I saw someone on Morning Live yesterday saying Cyril is constantly giving empty promises. At some point, he promised 1 million homes in Alex that they're still waiting for. Obviously, he's not unique. All politicians lie, we know. But it's just in the era of wokeness and where people are paying more attention to governments. Can they please try better in hiding their lies? Can they please just take us a bit more seriously? Because it's actually quite upsetting to listen to some of these things. Our government in South Africa creates jobs. It's a fact. I gave you some of the people that they employ. And like I said, state-owned enterprises, millions of jobs across SOEs are created directly by government. I'm not even talking about tenders now. Our government, with a budget of 1.9 trillion rand a year, gives out tenders, which are outsourced and which then create jobs for other people. Over 40% of our budget every year goes to just paying salaries, including his salary up big nose as well. So very upsetting. He himself is employed by government and is busy saying that government doesn't create jobs. Very annoying. Business creates jobs. Around 80% of all people employed in South Africa are employed in the private sector. Like I said, over 1.3 million people, according to Mail and Guardian, are employed directly by government. Through the SOEs, I can only imagine we can maybe thumb suck and guess another 3 to 5 million people. We've got between 13 and 15 million permanent employees in this country. Government is the single largest creator of jobs in this country. I'm going to move on. South Africa needs a new consensus to address the immediate crisis and to create conditions for a long-lasting stability and development. To achieve this, South Africa needs a new consensus. A consensus that is born out of a common understanding of our current challenging situation and a recognition of the need to address the challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. Just a whole lot of blowing air. What I want to highlight again with unemployment, and I've said this before, your forefathers, your great-great-great-grandfathers and grandmothers had 100% unemployment in South Africa. They weren't working for anyone. They didn't have jobs. They worked for themselves, for their families. Why? Because they had land. Something that Cyril doesn't want to attack head on for obvious reasons. The people that he serves when he says Tumamina, the rich private sector and the rich billionaires and the elite in this country, which are both black and white, and some Indians and some Chinese people, etc. They obviously control a bulk of the profitable land, productive land in this country. Your forefathers had land. They could grow their own food. They could breed their own livestock. So they didn't need to go and work in a mine, in a factory, on a farm. But with colonization and the implementation of hard tax, our families were broken. And our fathers were forced far away to go and work in mines and farms and factories. And after that, they went for our mothers, who also worked in factories and then went to work as domestic workers, leaving us, the kids, to be forced to go to school, which became a babysitter for us. And not only that, but it fundamentally removed all our skills. From a place where we could grow our own food, grow our own medicine, where we could breed our own livestock, where we could build our own homes. Today, you have a matric that is hollow, that has nothing in it. You've got kids that have graduated. We have a 40% black graduate unemployment problem in this country. You've got kids that have graduated that don't know how to plant a potato, that are begging in the streets because they feel that they need a job. The job will give them money. The money will allow them to go and buy from the funders of Cyril and every other politician. Because our education system is fundamentally about dependency. It is not about empowering you so that you can do for self. Because once you do for self, that means you don't need to work for them. If you don't work for them, that means you don't need money. If you're not working for money, that means you can't pay tax, which funds these politicians and their friends through tenders. Electricity crisis. Several new energy generation projects will be coming online over the next few years. The same promise has been made for the last few years, unfortunately. At some point, you have to research Car Powership. Car Powership is a company that is bringing these huge ships that are going to be sitting in the ocean and generating power for the country. There's been controversy around how Car Powership has gone in business. They are a Turkish business, I'd like to believe. They've got some local partners that a lot of people don't really want to speak about. I believe their spokesperson in this country is Kay Sehwale, who is the niece of Tokyo Sehwale. There's a lot of scandals there, but again, we don't hear about state capture. Again, we don't hear about how did they get there. How is Patrice Motsepe, the brother-in-law of Cyril Ramaphosa, how is he invested in the majority of the independent power producer deals that have been finalized? We don't speak state capture because of, again, propaganda, and whoever's in charge gets to control the narrative. Modernizing the visa process. We are streamlining and modernizing the visa application process to make it easier to travel to South Africa for tourism, business, and work. As we committed last year, the e-visa system has now been launched in 14 countries, including China, India, Kenya, and Nigeria. Another old promise. What is new is the comprehensive review of the work visa system led by a former Director General of Home Affairs, Mavuso Msimang. At some point, I guess I'll have to speak about foreigners. A lot of people have DM'd me, a lot of people have commented asking, what is my opinion around foreigners in South Africa? And what are my thoughts around Operation Dudula, Yanhlanhla Lux and other people? I'm not going to address it now, today, but we will address it at some point. We obviously welcome tourism because they're bringing foreign currency into the country. It would be nice at some point for South Africans to not only go overseas to take pictures for Instagram in Bali and Phuket and Dubai and all these other places, but to go out there and make meaningful money. There's a lady, like I'd said before, who contacted me who is working on The Lion King, I believe, in Germany. I appreciate stuff like that. I wish more South Africans could get into the arts, could get into creating local produce, amapeshu, icholo, and other great crafts, beads, you know, like Dr. Esther Mahlangu, so that when we go overseas, we export our products, our clothing, and then we export our arts, our music, our dance, and in that way bring back foreign currency as well into the country. Water. A comprehensive turnaround plan is being implemented to streamline the process for water use license applications. The target is to clear the backlog of applications by June 2022 and to process 80% of all applications within 90 days during the next financial year. Legislation has been prepared for the establishment of the National Water Resources Infrastructure Agency and will be published for public comment within the next month. 2 points I want to make. The first one being that capitalists will do what capitalists do. Very controversially, the CEO of Nestle has gone on to say that he believes we should privatize water in the world so that people can take water more seriously and so that we don't struggle with water scarcity. Over 70% of the globe is covered in water. Why would you want to privatize water which flows from the heavens in the rain and then comes through in terms of our rivers? Very shocking, but capitalists will do what capitalists do, which is to privatize whether it's land, whether it's space, whether it's the moon, whether it's water now, so that obviously they can keep pummeling and punishing us and exploiting our labor for what we call God-given, nature-given natural resources. Second thing I want to mention, I think it may have been Nomvula Mukunyane who mentioned, because again, they were shocked, as our politicians are always shocked. Over 90% of dams in this country are privately owned and mostly by white people. A dam, by definition, is a man-made water reserve. A river is natural. A dam is man-made. Whenever you hear someone saying whatever dam, you must know that that is man-made. Over 90% of our dams are privately owned, which is very shocking because our water sources come from dams. But it's some of the things that we don't know. There have been talks about food security, of course, and now we're talking about water security. And for me, it's a conspiracy, but it sounds like there's an agenda to potentially now privatize our water, and we might see in the future water shedding, where we're being told things like, no, we need to sort out our water, maybe the maintenance and infrastructure, just like it happened at ESCOM, because a lot of the water we get, if not all the water we get, is obviously under monopoly by the state as well. If, like ESCOM, we find out that pipes haven't been maintained, if we find out that water's been contaminated, I've heard of places like Hammanskraal, where the water might have too much fluoride and people end up with brown teeth. You might find that we end up with water shortages, and all of a sudden we have to now have water in buckets and in bathtubs and all these kind of things, and now we're forced to go and buy water. It's very shocking what happens when you put money-hungry people in charge of running the nation and looking after the world. New small business loan scheme. A new redesigned loan guarantee scheme is being introduced to enable small businesses to bounce back from the pandemic and civic unrest. This new bounce back scheme incorporates the lessons from the previous loan guarantee scheme. It will involve development finance institutions and non-bank SME providers in offering finance, expanding the types of financing available, and adjust eligibility criteria to encourage greater uptake. The truth is that the schemes to try and pump money into small businesses was a fail. The Solidarity Fund, which they claimed would be transparent, is not transparent. Gloria Serube, and I forgot the white gentleman who was in charge of the fund, we don't know what they've been doing with the money. The money that the banks put up, the money that the Rupert family and the Oppenheimers and the Mutsipes put up, we don't know what's happened to that money, or if it was actually brought forth. I think at some point it may have been the Oppenheimers and the Ruperts or both, but they decided that they're going to do this thing on their own. And they decided to pull back this money and they run it themselves. We don't know what's happening, because unfortunately the media chooses what it reports on, and it doesn't fundamentally uproot and investigate some of these other things where there was huge fanfare of, if donated $1 billion. But in terms of follow-up, it's very, very poor. A lot of the small businesses haven't succeeded in getting money because of things like red tape, compliance. We know all Mama Betu that are selling a makota, that sell cabbages on the street, they don't have financial statements. They don't have business bank accounts. So obviously they can't access this money. It was all for show and clapping hands and for political mileage, but it was all a pile of bullshit. And a lot of the companies that benefited are companies that can raise funding from the bank and also on their own anyways. Very frustrating from our government once again. Cutting red tape for business. We are reviewing the Business Act alongside a broader review of legislation that affects SMMEs to reduce the regulatory burden on informal businesses. There are too many regulations in this country that are unduly complicated, costly, and difficult to comply with. This prevents companies from growing and creating jobs. Christo Visa, who owns ShopRite, Pepco, and a couple of other companies, has been complaining about this for years. That red tape in this country is unbelievable. The late Dr. Richard Maponya complained about the same thing for years, that red tape is ridiculous. Aliko Dangote, who is the wealthiest man on the continent and the wealthiest black man in the world, also has been echoing the same sentiments. When are you going to reduce red tape? I'd like to think Paul Kagame in Rwanda has cut it down drastically. I think you can register a company in Rwanda within a matter of hours. In South Africa, we've been doing well, sort of. They've been trying to reduce the turnaround time for registering a business, a company, but it is still a lot. They've gone online, where again, our mothers and our fathers can't go online. And a lot of people that don't have data, that don't have the internet, can't access these services. It's very, very sad in a country that is trying to develop. If we're trying to get people to set up businesses, if we're trying to get our kids to manufacture and farm and put their stuff together and send it to China and send it to America and send it to Germany, we have not made it easy. And there's a reason why red tape exists. It exists so that the big companies at the top are always compliant, because they have the money. They have the politicians in their pockets who make sure that they reduce red tape. And I can only tell you now that with these initiatives that they're doing it for their friends. It's not necessarily Utu Mama Otaisa Makota can now supply government employees with a Makota. It's not so much that Uputi that owns a taxi will now be able to transport government employees with his taxi. It's going to be for their friends at the top. A lot of it is just noise. So as said, I've therefore appointed Sipho Nkosi to head up a team in my office to cut red tape across government. Sipho Nkosi used to be the CEO of Exaro, which was a mining company. Sipho Nkosi was one of the beneficiaries of BEE. And when I've read some of their stories, these guys had these humongous loans to deal with when they got their BEE shares. And when their shares eventually vested, eventually they could get them. They literally sold them because they were like, this is the only way we can capture value. A lot of our BEE deals have gone to shit. A lot of our BEE deals were given as loans to these black people, and they've never really been able to pay back these loans. A lot of the value has been extracted through dividends, for example, or when the shares vest. The only way for them to settle these loans is by selling these shares back to the people that gave it to them in the first place. Siponkosi Ubaba Vryheid, I'd like to believe, KwaZulu, 100 kilometers from my hometown in Newcastle, and I believe he lives in Bryanston in the same area as Patrice Mtsibe. I believe they are neighbors. Siponkosi coming here to save you guys, or are they coming to consolidate power amongst their little circle of friends with Patrice, Abo Putuma, Abo Saki Matozoma and the likes? We don't know. They're going to say they're giving money to, or they're easing red tape for SMMEs. But if you do the unpacking and the looking through, you might find that a lot of their family members and friends are going to be benefiting from these things. And everyone else is going to be struggling again. Meanwhile, they're going to be told, go to workshops, sign up here, what, to waste your fucking time. Building bridges. Very, very sad story, which we've seen since the dawn of democracy and even beyond. Many children have to brave overflowing rivers to reach schools, and motorists have to battle impossible roads to reach their next town. We are therefore upscaling the Welly Sizwe Rural Bridges program to deliver 95 bridges a year from the current 14, which means our government is currently building 14 bridges, and they're going to try and push for 95 bridges. There's a lot of promises in the past with our government, and sadly, these State of the Nation addresses never really say, this is what we promised you last year, this is how we did. This is what we promised you the year before, this is how we did. Are they going to be tracking this last year? We promised 14 roads, we managed to build this many. Are we? We don't know. Who is building these 14 roads? Because these are obviously government tenders. Are they going to black people or are they going to white people? If they're going to black people, are those black people then outsourcing to the big construction cartel again? 95 bridges seems like a huge push. We don't know how they've been doing before. I hate the fact that kids have to cross rivers to go and study hollow education when they could actually stay at home, because a lot of them are in rural areas. Stay at home and help your parents raise and breed the chickens and the goats and learn how to plant maize. That's where your true wealth and true education lies. You're going to learn maths and science and geography that you'll never use because there are no jobs coming for you. And while you're trying to do that, you're going to be crossing a river and dying from drowning. It's a fucking joke. But I have to blame the parents as well, because if you keep doing the same thing, expecting the different results, apparently that's the definition of insanity. Investment conference next month. Nearly 4 years ago, we set ourselves a target of mobilizing 1.2 trillion rand in new investment over 5 years. By the time of the third South African Investment Conference in November 2020, we had reached 776 billion rand in investment commitments. Next month, on March the 24th, we will be holding the 4th South Africa Investment Conference in Johannesburg. This is all show, and it is very hollow, and it is not true. Initially, when Cyril kicked off this thing, everyone was excited. He's going to go and raise, maybe it was $100 billion or whatever it was. And he brought in his mates, Trevor Manuel and all these guys, to be like, oh, they're going to be part of the super team to raise funding. So it was a whole lot of smoke and mirrors. A lot of the money that they celebrate here is money that companies in South Africa have already earmarked for investment. If you have Toyota South Africa, which already has a budget for 50 billion to roll out new taxis that they're going to sell, Cyril is going to take that 50 billion that is already on their books and add it as a number and say, oh, we managed to raise 50 billion. It's a lie. A lot of these foreign companies, whether it's BMW, I know at some point Zuma opened a plant, I think in Uitenhage. I don't know if it was for BMW or Mercedes, for example. A lot of these projects are projects that these foreign companies are already rolling out. If KFC, for example, wants to revamp all the stores in South Africa because they've been making such good money from blacks and streetwise twos, Cyril is going to take whatever they've earmarked as an investment and say, from KFC, we've got another 2 billion. It's smoke and mirrors. It's not true. They're not going out to China and literally raising new money that is coming to build infrastructure so that South Africans, poor South Africans, are getting jobs, so that poor South Africans can meaningfully contribute to the economy and export. We found out a few days ago that Huawei has over over 80% of their workers in South Africa are foreigners. Home Affairs allowed this. Our government allowed this. Now it's all shock, which is bullshit. I think 1.5 billion rand was blown in Durban when a deal was given to Ashish Thakkar with the Mara Group. He came in and there was fanfare, because there's always fanfare and media splashes. Well, Ashish, I think, might be from Uganda. I could be wrong. He's of Indian descent, but he's from Uganda. He came in here saying he's coming to manufacture a cell phone in South Africa, and there was 1.5 billion that was made. Next thing, boom. I think newsreader Waga Jantis, is her name Shantae? I'm not sure. Very pretty colored lady, Waga Jantis, I think was the spokesperson. We don't know what's happened to this deal. We know that it's disappeared. We've seen other similar deals where billions have been thrown at them and they've fizzled into thin air. Very, very tragic. I'm tired of the nonsense and the noise. They have these investment conferences so that established companies come and say, look, we're actually planning to scale up here because we've been making money. Some of the mines are going to be like, look, we're going to be spending 30 billion to do what. Cyril's going to count all these little monies together and then announce, we've managed to raise another 200 billion. We have to celebrate, which is, people that can think can see through the stuff, and people like myself are here to open your eyes, to scrutinize some of these deals, because they're lying to you, unfortunately. And the other important thing to consider, look at how much they're investing in this country. Look at how much money they take out. Over 40% of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is foreign owned. It is not owned by South Africans, which means 40% of our dividends go overseas. 40% of the appreciation of share value goes overseas. But now it's off whose sweat? It's off the sweat of South African laborers, which means South Africa is like a second-hand country. We're actually like a huge factory for foreign companies, whether it's mines or factories or whatever. They come and they woo your politicians. I heard Utito Mboweni, after he rejoined as chairman this property company he used to work for before, all of a sudden he's advisor of Goldman Sachs again. That came out 2 days ago. Which means throughout this time he's actually been serving these guys again. But we're the clowns. It's a circus, but we're the clowns. You know, follow the money. Follow the money. South Africa is a second-hand state. Very, very sad for me, and I hope we'll change it over time. Regulating sale of scrap metals. The damage caused by the theft of scrap metal and cable on our infrastructure, like electricity, trains, and other vital services, is enormous. We will take decisive steps this year, both through improved law enforcement and by considering further measures to address the sale or export of such scrap metal. People that are stealing copper cables and the like to go and sell to these backyard scrap metal vibes where you get paid by the kilo for your metal. Very big problem, disrupts us a lot. Something needs to be done. The sad thing is, because I don't trust our government, I know what they mean when they talk about regulating. It means they're going to set up companies where they're going to crush all these little scrap metal places, and you're going to find a few big players are going to come in and create these huge companies where Amapara are going to be able to come and bring their scrap metal. They're going to claim that they're reviewing the source. Where did you get this from? Was this stolen? But it's so that they can make sure that they have some kind of control, because they found out that billions of rands are being made by normal people in exporting scrap metal and selling scrap metal. And they want to zone in and zero in on this industry and make sure that they're eating alone. That's how it works. That's capitalism 101. Finalizing mining exploration strategy. To attract investors into mining the minerals needed in the new global economy, we will soon be finalizing our mining exploration strategy. That basically means they're going to be telling foreigners how they can come and loot from us again. Jacob Zuma and his people tried to increase the mining charter so that it could go up and allow for more black owners of mines, and it was shut down. In the same way they do, Claudi Mutsueneng was shut down when he was trying to push for 90% local content on SABC. Unfortunately, your politicians, especially someone like Cyril, who works with the likes of Ophuthuma Nhleko Pembani or Patrice Motsepe at African Rainbow Minerals or African Rainbow Capital, with all the other guys they work with that were his funders, your Aspens, like I said, who are working with Johnson & Johnson, your Bidvest, and all these other big companies. Unfortunately, they want to obviously chow the money alone. It's how business works. Zuma wanted to bring in his people, including the Guptas, to come and eat and consolidate. Cyril is now flushing them out. and trying to put in his people and bring back the incumbent white people that have evergreen contracts. Some of the evergreen contracts we know are deals between Glencore and Cyril Ramaphosa's Shanduga, who have never been investigated for state capture. When Cyril was head of the war room at ESCOM, no one ever asked, but how is this guy being in charge of investigating whatever and making sure when him and Glencore, which are known to be a controversial company, get to supply ESCOM at expensive coal? Siyatula, because we listen to the media and the media pushes their propaganda. Formalizing the cannabis industry. The hemp and cannabis sector has the potential to create more than 130,000 new jobs. More job promises. We will not hold our breath. We do not want to collapse and die. Cannabis will obviously, or has obviously been legalized now because the people who run this country, the people who are wealthy in this country, found a way to create policies that favor them. The licenses are very expensive. They're very exclusionary. I'd like to give a shout out to my economics professor, Arthur Webb, who was the head of the commerce department, I believe, at Rhodes University. Since I was at Rhodes in 2004, this guy's been saying the Eastern Cape is sleeping on hemp and it's a giant. And if hemp could be unleashed, it would create so many jobs, it would make so much money, it would employ the poor people of the Eastern Cape. It's come now. We'll see who's going to benefit. I'm not going to hold my breath. I hope you don't either. So went on to say we are therefore streamlining the regulatory processes. That means they're cutting out people in basic language so that the hemp and cannabis sector can thrive like it is in other countries such as Lesotho. Who's running cannabis in Lesotho? I'll leave that for you to go and do homework. Same way, who's running the water industry in Lesotho? Go and do your homework. People of Lesotho are very poor. That's why Lesotho people are jumping into South Africa and coming here to build houses and whatever the hell they do, to come and be nannies and stuff. Climate change. I've appointed Daniel Minile, a former deputy governor of the Reserve Bank, as head of the Presidential Climate Finance Task Team to lead the mobilization of funds for our just transition. Mobilization of funds. Money is going to be charged basically for climate change. What is South Africa doing for climate change? They're going to have a climate conference and they're going to, we need to go green and fund renewable energy. Social Employment Fund. The Social Employment Fund will create a further 50,000 work opportunities. Please don't hold your breath. Using the capability of organizations beyond government in areas such as urban agriculture, early childhood development, public art, and tackling gender-based violence. Tackling gender-based violence. Men, please don't stop beating up women because it creates jobs. If you guys stop beating up women, all these great NGOs that are building shelters for women, all these great NGOs that are creating special courts for GBV, all these people that are earning stipends, all these marketing companies that are creating banners and all these ads, stop gender-based violence. They will lose money and they will lose jobs. So, Machita, because you are creating employment. It's very ridiculous. It's very sad. Look, something needs to be done about gender-based violence. It is not right to lay your hands on a woman. It is not right for women to go around slapping men, pouring wine and champagne on them like Brooke Logan on The Bold and the Beautiful. Gender-based violence has to stop. But it is sad and ironic and paradoxical that tackling gender-based violence creates work opportunities. Expand criteria for employment tax incentive. To encourage hiring by smaller businesses, we'll be increasing the value and expanding the criteria for participation in the employment tax incentive. For several years, this has been an effective way to encourage companies to hire new work seekers. The changes to the incentive will make it easier for small businesses in particular to hire young people. It's not a comfortable thing to speak about, but we have to cut the minimum wage. We have to cut it. If you cut minimum wage, we can hire more people. It's not nice. It's exploitation, of course. But if you're a developing nation trying to become a China, you have to exploit your labor. China wasn't built of great labor regulation. No, they were built from sweatshops, exploiting people working in really bad environments. They were built of selling fake goods, counterfeit goods. That's how you build an economy, first world economy. Britain wasn't built of labor regulations. Britain was built from colonization, from milking the likes of South Africa and other countries in the Commonwealth. America was built of slavery. We know this. Europe was built of colonization. The Spaniards, Belgium, the Portuguese. So you want South Africa to now play fair, when we know even this economy we have now was built of colonization and apartheid. But now as a young black guy who wants to create employment, I have to follow this regulation. That is the same regulation that a big apartheid colonization company is following. It is rubbish. Absolute rubbish. It's sad, but we have to scrap the minimum wage. We have to exploit our own people. And guys, if you don't want to exploit yourself to build a greater economy, the Pakistanis are locking themselves in containers for 16 hours a day. The Nigerians, the Mozambicans, the Malawians, the Zimbabweans, the Lesotho people, Nabantu Baseswatini are bending their backs every day, working long hours, after hours, doing hair, manufacturing stuff, building houses, because they have turned themselves into slaves to build a better future for themselves. While you're screaming good labor laws and great what. I shame, we'll see where that gets you in the future, as jobs keep falling and people keep automating. Extend 350 Rand grant. We will extend the 350 Rand social relief distress grant for one further year to the end of March 2023. During this time, we will engage in broad consultations and detailed technical work to identify the best options to replace this grant. They will want to replace this grant with a universal basic income. There's been talks about it for probably over 10 years now. Some of the wealthiest people in the world have been talking about it. This thing of when the robots take over, when everything has become automated, when everything is an app away, what are we going to do with all these people? We need them to keep supporting our businesses. So we will give them a universal basic income. That's what they want. That's the solution that the wealthy have come up with, which is a very pop solution. But understandably, they want to keep making money. Understand that from this 350 Rand, from other child grants and pensions, which is the old age grant, understand that your Crystal Visa at ShopRite, Checkers and Pep, the guys at SAP who sell booze and other people, even the Pakistanis who end up funding your Pioneer Foods, your Unilevers, your Procter & Gamble's, they love grants because grants is where the poor take this money and then they spend it back with them. ShopRite as a business makes a lot of money from grants. So does Pep, so does booze, so do the foreign-owned salons, so does the taxi industry, so do cell phone networks like Vodacom, Cell C, MTN, for example. So they obviously want keep giving the poor grants because we get to make money. If Penwell and Penwellism teach the poor to go back to the villages and grow their own food and build their own homes, we won't be able to make money anymore. You will bleed us dry. Penwell is trying to empower and upskill people and tell them to go back and use the land. And I've seen people attack me because, again, people have small brains and are stupid. Why don't your kids go to the villages? Why don't you go to the villages? Guys, come on. I'm living well. I live in the suburbs of Johannesburg, and I've found various ways to monetize, whether it's selling my books, whether it's people consulting with me, whether it's other businesses I have on the side. I'm living fine. But I visit squatter camps. I visit townships. I see people struggling. I can't go like a motivational speaker. I can't go like a politician and keep telling people, have hope, like a pastor, have faith. God will provide. Have faith, my child. God has a plan for you. I'm practical. I'm pragmatic. I'm telling people, guys, you're living really, really bad lives here. You're getting sick. You're spreading disease. You live in tins. And there's always fires breaking out and people are dying. I'm saying there's land. Go back and work the land. It is not comfortable. You won't live in the great city and see celebrities when you're in Joburg. But you will be able to feed yourself the same way a chimpanzee and a monkey can feed themselves, and you will have dignity. Our ancestors didn't have nice technology like Facebook Live, like YouTube. They didn't. But they had dignity and they took care of themselves and they weren't begging on street corners for jobs. Please exploit me. Please, Mlungu, can I get on the back of your bakkie and come and paint your house just so I can buy a sack of maize meal? Go grow your own corn, Bila, in the villages. Don't ask me about me and my kids. We're privileged. Unless if you'd like me to keep quiet and watch you carry on suffering and live in my privilege and not say anything to you. I can lie to you and tell you jobs are coming, but they're not. I'm telling you, go back to the villages and find your dignity. Once you guys have got an abundance of food that you're growing, you've got too many chickens, too many goats, that's exciting. Because people like myself will then come to the villages and say, listen, China wants your pork. China wants your rooibos tea. Can we now package it and export it? And then we'll take the money from export and then we'll put up internet in the villages and we'll bring you guys nice cars and we'll do all these great things that you guys want because you are now overworking and overproducing and we can now flood the world. The same way we have chicken dumped from the US, we will dump our produce on them and make money from them. But it starts with you taking a step back and going to work very, very hard in the villages and not sitting at street corners and begging and being burnt by the sun for your government that is promising you jobs so you can vote for them again so that they can bullet your tax money through tenders, through their salaries and through their friends that are funding their campaigns. It's very disrespectful to you. It's very degrading to you. And you need to catch a wake up at some point. Full vacancies in security clusters. Before I do that, Cyril Ramaphosa was congratulating a person. I'm not going to mention the business because I think we must celebrate black businesses, small black businesses in particular. This person had saved up their 350 Rand grant for 7 months and opened an ice cream business in one of the townships. Cyril should not have mentioned this. We already know there's a lot of corruption in this country, whether it's through the grants or it's through illegal electrical connection or through NSFAS or other things. If a person is able to save a 350 Rand that is meant to be paid for basic needs, that means that person doesn't need the 350 Rand. That means they're surviving fine. If anything, once the story broke, there should have been an investigation on why were you getting 350 Rand? Where were you eating and living? Because clearly you didn't need this money. If you look at some of the kids that are taking their NSFAS, there was a story that broke out, I think last year as well, of a child that had been saving their NSFAS allowance and had built a business. Great story. Why were you getting an allowance if you have the ability to save it? That means you don't need it. It's a story for another day. I appreciate and I celebrate people that have the ability to take the little bit that they have, put it aside. I would tell people to do the same. If you have the ability to grow your own food, but you're still receiving a child grant, and you take that child grant and you're building a business, by all means, do it. But when a president of a nation who is meant to be intelligent is celebrating you, my question to you is, how can you be celebrating someone who is clearly not using the money for what it was intended for? That means there's a flaw in your system. Never mind the fact that there are so many ghost employees that we've been finding about. We don't know if we'll find out in future how many ghost people have been receiving the 350 Rand grants as well. Full vacancies in security cluster. We will begin immediately by filling critical vacancies and addressing positions affected by suspensions in the State Security Agency and Crime Intelligence. We will be appointing a new head of the Investigating Directorate following the departure of Advocate Hermonay. Was it meant to be Hermonay Cronier from that position. We will soon be announcing leadership changes in a number of security agencies to strengthen our security structures. Jacob Zuma was slashed for appointing his people to certain places. Cyril Ramaphosa is appointing his own people. He was implicated in state capture. Uzondo and the rest of the guys see no issue with that. Now he's getting rid of other people and putting in his own people. Number two, he's centralizing state security so that it is in his office. And we're not talking state capture. We are being disrespected. We are being belittled by the people that run this nation and the people in the media who are asking us to applaud this. Asking us to applaud that a president who was involved when lawmen killed miners at Marikana, who was part of Jacob Zuma's ANC that was accused of being captured by the Guptas, who has worked with Glencore in supplying electricity, expensive electricity to Eskom, whose brother-in-law and other family members are involved in government tenders and other businesses and gain favor from the PIC and other government funding institutions, who are now getting a hand in independent power producers, who were involved in the total deal for oil or energy that was found. This guy must now control our state security when he failed with the riots to do anything. His own team failed, but he's not taking accountability. He's going to fire his staff, or staff that I'm guessing is not his people or not part of his faction. And he's going to put in his own people and centralize. And he's bringing in all these people so that he can consolidate power. So that by the time we try to get rid of him or whatever, we won't be able to. Because all the power will be within his hands. He'll get to choose the Chief Justice. He'll get to choose what's a crime and what's not. He was implicated in the state capture report. But Judge Raymond Zondo and all these other people are turning a blind eye. Zuma and the Guptas, but there's no proof. There's no proof that Zuma was captured to this day. There's a third report coming out. 3 reports later. There is no proof that Zuma received money. There is no proof that Zuma placed someone who, even Tom Moyane at SARS, there was a report that said it is clear that Tom Moyane was, there is no proof that Tom Moyane gave certain people special tax treatment. None. Instead, they say, no, the staff feared him. Staff fear a lot of bosses. He placed a lot of his people. People always place their people when they come in. Still, Ramaphosa has placed his own people in cabinet. Our intelligence is being disrespected and disregarded, and they need to stop. They need to stop. And if it's not my voice, I hope other voices on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter keep speaking loudly until the masses catch a wake up. And you begin voting effectively, not just for the nation. Vote in your branches, in your own branches and wards. Your people are captured through small monies because they have tenders. And they're taking you for granted and they're ill-treating you for streetwise too. For a little bit of icho at the side. You're part of the reason why this country is not working the way it should. Hire extra 12,000 police officers. We will make resources available to recruit and train an additional 12,000 new police personnel to ensure that the SAPS urgently gets the capacity it needs. Positive move. I've been a victim of cops that say things like they don't have police cars. If you go onto the internet and you search for shortage of police cars at SAPS, you will find out about so many crimes that have not been attended to in many townships across the country because Amapois are like, hi, asna imoto. Very tragic. It would be nice to get more police, number one. Obviously, the well-off have got their own private security that they have in their nice neighborhoods. For me, what we saw in Phoenix with the Indians, what we saw in some of the white neighborhoods should have inspired the black NASAs. Now is the time to stop relying on the police for your security. In your own home, do you have a gun? Do you have a nopkiri? Do you have a shambok? Do you have knives? Do you know how to fight physically? Are you upskilling your family so that you can defend yourself? Are you upskilling your family so that you guys understand the law, what you can and can't do, how self-defense works? As long as you're relying on government, as long as you're relying on the police, you are putting yourself in a vulnerable position to be exploited. You need to get weapons, you need to protect yourself, even against the police. Police in this country have raped victims. Police in this country have killed their own partners. They've been involved in heavy crimes and corruption. You can't trust all of them at face value. You need to be able to defend yourself and your family against even the police. The same police that we're not speaking about it now, the police and some of the soldiers killed people under the lockdown. These cases disappeared into thin air. A guy was drinking in his yard and killed. People were being bullied and forced to do push-ups and other stupid shit by the soldiers. And nothing's happened. Learn to defend yourself. We appreciate the police that are coming in. But what's more important is for you to upskill yourself. Get your sons and daughters to play rugby. Rugby is a very hidden way that white Afrikaners give military training to their sons. Play rugby, pick up the sport of hunting animals. That's how you easily get a gun license. Open a business, whatever business it is. It's an easy way to get a gun license. Go to the shooting range, learn how to shoot, get weapons, learn how to fight, pick up boxing, mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, whatever the case may be. I want to highlight, I've finished the article. Stats SA data shows that approximately 3.4 million out of 10.2 million young people aged 15 to 24 years old were not in any form of employment or education or training. About 34% of people aged 15 to 24 years are not working, not educated, not training. Obviously, a bulk of them are probably earning the 350 Rand grant. No one is telling them to go and work in the villages and grow food. Because when we say it, it sounds disrespectful. You're like, why don't you go to the villages? And I'm like, by all means, keep worshipping the government that exploits you and is crashing our economy. I want to see if there's any other points I want to raise. Nope. Nope. How do you grow an economy? Cyril spoke about the South African economy because they love talking about economic growth. Economic growth. The solution to our problems is economic growth. If we can have economic growth, then everything and the jobs and Assume that South Africa is a home. Your home. It's a house. In this house, you guys have various skills. Sadly, in this house, 40% of the people in your house don't have jobs. They don't work. How do you grow? How do you create jobs and do things for this house? You sell to the neighbors. Our country should be on export overdrive. I used to have opportunities to engage with Tito Mboweni, and this was one of the things I used to say to him over and over. Why are we not teaching children from primary school how to sell, how to farm, how to manufacture, and then on top of that, teach them basic accounting, teach them how tax works, and then teach them how to export, and turn schools, normal schools, into mini factories. Instead of kids just sitting in class and playing in a band and singing choir and playing rugby, why can't some of the extramurals not just be Toastmasters and debating? Some of the extramurals, what is the school farming? Can some of the kids in the school come up with a play similar to The Lion King, Sarafina, and go overseas and bring in foreign currency? Do they understand tax? Instead, as a nation, we're constantly, number one, borrowing from the neighbors. Why are we borrowing? We're borrowing so we could buy food. If you're borrowing to buy food, that means you're constantly going to owe money and you're not manufacturing or creating or farming anything. Number two, we're borrowing to clothe ourselves. From China, from Vietnam, from Bangladesh. We're not borrowing to upskill the kids in this house and buying a shovel and buying a tractor and buying a sewing machine so that the kids in this home can make things for export. Because your leaders unfortunately don't have that vision. Because your leaders don't have that vision, I need you guys to focus on a concept that I raised the other day. The state of the home address is an idea. Someone called it to SOFA, the state of the family address. Whenever you listen to some of these announcements, or these announcements at least every year, state of the nation, think of the state of your home. Did you guys make money in the last year? What education do you guys have as a family? Are your kids studying online? Do you have a plan when your kids are not going to school because of COVID regulation? Do you guys make your own clothing? Are you busy wearing Italian and French and Chinese people's names on your body? Are you wearing your own names on your body? Are you guys a net exporter in your home or a net importer? Do you make more money from selling things to other families, or do those families make more money from selling to you? I've said before that in this country, Muslims, Jews, a lot of the white people have got close to 0% unemployment because you buy from them. And when you buy from them, you help them create jobs in their families. But are they buying from you? Indian Muslim won't buy your food. They won't buy your kotas and your bunny chows are sort of Indian. They won't buy your kotas. They won't buy inyama yento. They won't buy a plate. They'll tell you it's not halal. But you go and you buy their bunny chows and their samosas and their curries and their biryanis. Jewish people won't buy your food because they'll tell you it's not kosher. They won't wear your clothes. Do you see potentially Indian people buying a Batu drip, Maxhosa, Tula Sindi, David Kale outfit for Muslims? They won't. They will buy from their own people. It's time that you wisen up and introspect. And every year, at least once a year, it should actually be every month, sit your family down and say, look, can we have a state of the home address? Can we have a state of the family address where I, as maybe the father or the mother, the head of the family, I will address you guys. If your father and your mother are not the most intelligent, the most visionary, it could be a child with a degree or a child that has a business who comes and says, can we have a family meeting? Are we saving money as a family? Do we have an education plan? Where are we planning to move in 5-10 years time? Are we bringing money in as a family? Do we have skills? Are we traveling abroad to go and learn from other nations and bring that home? There are a lot of families in this country that are living first world lives. We may not be a first world nation, but they are living first world lives. Because in their family of maybe 5, they bring in so much more money than they send out. They maybe don't even have debt. They are the ones that provide debt to other families, and they live on the interest of those people. They own lots of properties and they collect rental income. They are healthy. They run every morning. They do push-ups. They go to the gym. They eat healthy food. They grow their own food. They are constantly upskilling their software in their minds because they're constantly reading. They're constantly attending seminars. They're constantly sharing knowledge. They're constantly watching YouTube and upskilling themselves. They're going to certain townships and they're doing charity work to try and ensure that these poor people are not coming to steal from them or coming to kill them. They are meaningful contributors in the country. There are families that live like that in this country. Is your family one of those countries, or is your family a beggar family? Is your family of 15 people sitting waiting for grants, queuing to go and fetch your ARV medicine, waiting for a savior somewhere in the sky, whether it's a Cyril Ramaphosa or a Didi Mabuza or a Lindiwe Sisulu, sitting at street corners and begging, demeaning yourself when your ancestors never begged. They grew their own food. Monkeys, chimpanzees, lions, elephants are not begging. They're not complaining about their lack of education. They are making means. And you're struggling to make means because your mind has been completely destroyed. The education that you value so much is destroying your ability to have basic logic. Destroying your ability to sit your kids down and say, guys, let's acquire skills. Let's learn how to cut hair. Let's learn how to sell and mend tires. Let's open a spaza shop. Things that foreigners, that they come here, they can't get jobs. Some of them are undereducated, but they're making means. The foreigners in this country are no different to the chimpanzees because they make things happen. Because you're at home and it's comfortable and the ANC promised us this and the Freedom Charter, you've allowed your mind to rot. Needs to stop, it needs to end. Those are some of my thoughts on the State of the Nation address. If I come up with any other thoughts or if I read up on some other articles that I think are important, I saw the EFF and ATM was saying Cyril Ramaphosa must step down because he failed with the July riots, etc. If I come up with other ideas and other thoughts, I will address them in days coming. I didn't want to make this too long. Penuel the Black Pen. I am the leader and the god of penalists. Anyone who would like to join my religion can hit me via DM. I'll send you the group link. Again, I've got 13 books. If you would like to buy any of my books, please drop me a DM and buy my books and help support what I'm trying to do. I'm happy that with my noise, with my Facebook and my YouTube gaining traction, I'm beginning to find my tribe. I'm beginning to find people like me. Black people, of course, but I'm open to other races, willing to work with white people, Indian people, foreigners. As long as we are of same mind and as long as we want our community and our circle to win, I'm willing to build with you. Penalism is the answer. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your